Welcome back to the Strong Mind, Strong Body podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Summers. Today I want to talk about injury and how do we overcome these injuries and really some of the mental things that we face when we have these injuries, because we can be on this path and in this mindset of everything just clicking. Then something comes up and we wind up on our ass. I mean, that is a very real scenario. You know, we might not get hurt to the extent that it keeps us from our sport, but we might get hurt in a sense of where it keeps us back to where we're not able to participate as much as usual. And we all dread getting hurt. And it's that taking us out of the game, out of the routine, and it just slows that momentum, right? You get it, momentum's going good, everything's flying, then just bam, you're just hit. And it's an emotional roller coaster. It's before I get into how, let's call it the comeback blueprint, if you will. I want to tell you about a time that I had to face this, that it really affected me and mindset and how it was rough. But let's take it back to, I'll give you a 30,000 foot view. Take it back to 2014. For years and years, I was trying to get into the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. And back then, you really weren't granted access through a lottery or through a corporate entity, or if you were throwing money at a charity, they really weren't getting you in. You had to put up or shut up, for lack of a better word, right? Or lack of a better phrase. And in 2014, I was flying, but I was just, every event, every race, I was getting better and getting better. It wasn't top step, but I was improving, and I'm seeing it. I'm like, okay, I'm getting there. And it's like 4 or 5 weeks prior to Leadville, they have the last qualifier to get in for that year. And it was in Utah. And I go up there and I have the best race ever. And this gentleman I was competing against, he always finished in front of me. And every single year, it was just like everybody else around me just kind of drowned it out. And it was just like, dude, I gotta beat this guy, because if I beat this guy, would ultimately, if everything goes good, I'd be on the steps, right? So I mean, that's incredible. And race goes extremely well. Ended up taking second place. Super stoked. So I'm cloud nine. I'm like, got in, got my coin, got the invite to Leadville. So I am just like, dude, badass. It's clicking, right? And it wasn't like the perfect season. It was just a build up, and just every race, every event, I was like, what can I do better? How can I get stronger? What happened? How can I come out of corners? I mean, just you start to analyze it and overanalyze and do all that. Well, long story, trying to be short, is I go back in. I'm like, okay, now I got to really train for this sucker, because I've never done a 100-mile mountain bike race. I've ridden my bike for 100 miles, but have not raced it for 100 miles. Big difference. And I've never done it at altitude, let alone starting at 10,000 feet, going up to 12.5. Uncharted territory. So I'm building up my miles, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-hour days. Well, I decide I'm going to ride on out. I'm going to meet my buddy about 40 miles from the house. We're going to ride from his house all the way up into Santa Barbara, California, up one of the climbs, come back, have some coffee. Awesome. Ended up doing it. Ride was great. And man, I felt amazing that day. I mean, it was just like, dude, I was just like, and it was 9 days out, 9 days from Leadville. It was the last big ride. Then I'm going to taper, go into Leadville fresh, and throw it all up, right? And I just felt incredible, smashed it up the climb. And my boy, he is strong. And I was just like, dude, I don't know if there is a tailwind just on me, but we be flying. And we go through, we have coffee at this local coffee shop in Santa Barbara that old pro opened up, incredible. And we're coming back, and there's this one road that we would stay off of because it has a lot of traffic. Then there's like a little service road that houses all these just massive like McMansions, you know, Oprah and all these people live there. It's in Montecito. And I'm going along, and we've never seen a car, never seen a vehicle, actually never seen anybody like walking a dog or anything. Riding along, look up, there's a white Tahoe to my left. Really, one of the last things I remember, a couple things, is my stomach turned. I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And those of you that ride know when you're coming up to an intersection or you see a car and you know it's like, this motherfreaker's gonna turn, or this dude's gonna blow this stop sign or this light. You know, you guys that ride, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Something doesn't feel right. And that Tahoe, as I'm going straight, decides to turn right into me. And I remember looking at the guy in the eyes just before I turned my head, and I went into his door and shattered my shoulder, put a whole bunch of fractures in my left leg, and that was a lot of pain. You know, and that ended that day, right? Clearly. Bike's in pieces. Just brutal day. And my buddy that was behind me, he crashed too. Way better off than me. Thank God. I don't wish that on anybody. And just a couple scratches here and there. I took the brunt of it. I took the vehicle. And I'm okay now, clearly, right? But I remember sitting there, and I'm in so much pain. I had a AC3 separation in the shoulder, still a little bit there, you know, still a little bit of pain in there. Flayed my bicep open. The leg was brutal. But I'm going through the doctors and everything, and I just remember sitting there just like, dude, I put in all this freaking work. And just like, and it literally didn't just like, I didn't get like sick, right? And I get it, you know, you get sick, it throws you off, but it's just like, I couldn't walk across the house without just like getting drenched in sweat without being in pain. And, you know, I'm sitting there, and the next day you're like, oh my gosh, I'm alive, everything's good, you know, but it's like, let's be real, you know, it's like, everybody's like, it could have been worse, but those of you that are in sport, and as that's an athlete, right? I don't care how strong you are, you still look at it like, hey, dude, I'm bummed. Like you go through this emotional, just like, everything I've worked for is like, am I going to be able to rebound from this? Am I going to be able to come back from this? You know, it's like, what if this, like all these thoughts that, you know, like all the negative thoughts that you've ever really thought in life never really come about, right? You're like, you always go worst case scenario, just like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. But it never comes to that, right? But our brains automatically go into this mindset of just like, I don't know, maybe it's just mine. I hope it's just mine, right? Hopefully y'all don't do this, but you default into the worst case scenario. Like, I'm never going to ride again. I'm never going to do another event. You know, I'm going to get fat or whatever it is, you know? And then you have good days and bad days. And it's just, God damn, it's just an emotional roller coaster. Good days, bad days. Then you'll be having a good day, and you'll see somebody out riding or running or doing your sport that you just were doing a few days ago, and you're like, oh, and you might not say it, but mentally you're just like, just really? Like, why? You know, it's not the why me. Maybe it is. I know I had those thoughts, but it's just like, why now? I'm so close. I was just literally, I was there. We were packing. The place is booked. The tickets booked. Like rental, like I'm going. Stuff's beginning to be packed, and it's just like, merch. Hold the phone. Got other plans for you. So it's this heavy. I mean, there's no other way to really describe it than it's just a freaking roller coaster, man, of just emotions, and they don't just come creeping in; they come flooding in, and that's what I experienced firsthand. And I've had multiple injuries over the years and stuff, but this is a topic I really think that a lot of us can find value in, and more importantly, I can remind myself of the value in how to overcome when you have those injuries, right? So let's dive into a comeback blueprint, if you will, right? So how are we going to stay strong, positive, and resilient while recovering from the injury? You see, it begins with a mindset shift. We can frame it a couple different ways. But what I like to do is, why don't we frame it as this isn't a setback, but we could frame it as it's a setup. Hear me now. Right now or at the time, you could be out of commission or dealing with the injury, right? Now, how strong is your mindset in this, right? How disciplined are you when everything isn't going your way? It's that moment right there that can be a tipping point, good or bad, right? Because we can feed the emotions, or we can feed the emotion, right? And what you feed it, it's like your body. We talk nutrition, right? It's like your body. If you feed it shit, it's going to give you shit. If you feed it good quality food, it's going to give you good quality food, right? You with me? Makes sense? All right? Okay. So this is how we're going to break it down. How to minimize fitness loss while respecting the healing process, because that is very important. I'm not going to say, hey, you just need to buck up and get shit done and get back. You got to respect the healing process, because you could ultimately do more damage than good. Okay. And we want to make sure you're back bigger, faster, stronger, right? That is super important. How to stay mentally and emotionally strong throughout the recovery, because we're going to have high and low days, right? We talked about that. And how to build a structured comeback plan to ensure you return stronger. So let's talk about mastering the mental battle, right? There's an identity we put on ourselves when we're something. We talked about it last time, right? And it's this identity crisis that we're afraid that our identity is going to crumble, right? And where it's like, this is what defines me, but what if we let this and be like, you know what? This isn't what's going to define me. This is what's going to make me stronger. One of the hardest parts about being injured isn't the physical recovery, it's the mental war. We're going into this, right? You got to rewrite the narrative, shift the focus on what you can do, and visualize the comeback, right? You hear about it all the time, visualize what you want, visualize the Ferrari, the house, the boat, or whatever, right? But let's be real, visualize how you're going to come back. And what I like to do is like, how sweet, how badass is it? Like, man, I just had this setback, and I've came back and I've stuck to my training better. I dialed in my nutrition better. I paid more attention to my workouts. I got back onto the structure a little bit more. I put in a little bit more time. I got a little bit more rest. And you just made these little tweaks to where this setback, okay, because of this setback that you might not have made before, because you're in this forward momentum, and it's like, hey, I know I'm supposed to do this today, but I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to do it. And you're constantly pushing the envelope, maybe losing a little bit of sleep, and you're going so hot. Maybe the nutrition is, pretty damn good, but not where you know it should be, right? Nothing's perfect, but where you know it should be. And now we can shift this into, hey, you know what? This is like a scheduled break for me. This is like I've been going so hard. This is a scheduled rest for me. So my body's going to be able to repair and come back. Then when it's time to start the process, I'm going to ease back into the process and focus more on what needs to be done today versus what I'm going to be doing months and months down the road at the event or whatever it is, right? Because oftentimes we get caught up in, I'm training for this, I'm doing this, I'm doing, it's coming up for summertime, but what are you doing today? Because today is what matters the most, because tomorrow isn't promised. We hear about it all the time, but you never know what tomorrow's going to have in store for you. So if you're always focusing about what's going to go on in the future, yes, it's important to have goals. Like, dude, I am all for that. It's important to have those goals, but the process in which achieving those goals is going to be a hell of a lot more important and rewarding than the goal, right? Than winning the event, than doing the event, than doing whatever it is, okay? Now, you can set new goals that you didn't have yesterday or the day before, or a couple of weeks ago, prior to the injury or the setback. You can shift from performance goals to recovery goals like flexibility and breathing, and maybe getting in a little bit more movement, like some walks and stuff like that, depending on the injury. And maybe you've been putting off some self-development stuff, right? Where you're like, man, I've really been wanting to kind of get into some books, or maybe you've been wanting to, just try a better stretching routine or start stretching, right? I mean, we all know, right? Hey, make sure you're stretching. Oh, yeah. You say yes, and you did, 43 years ago, whatever it was, right? But you can set new goals, and you can set new goals like, you know what? I was kind of like having that little snack before bed, and I'm going to cut that out right now. And it's these small goals, these little goals that you're going to make that will put you back in that mind. I feel it just sets you back in that mindset of being that athlete, right? You're back in that routine. It might not be in sport, but you're back in that routine of winning, right? And winning isn't the event. Winning is doing your workout for the day. Winning is getting the sleep you need to get for the day, right? Winning is doing what you say you're gonna do and sticking to it. I'm not gonna have the snacky snacks at night before bed. Then you don't have the snacky snacks and you quit stuffing your pie hole before bed. That's winning. You're on the right track. You know what? I'm gonna spend 5 minutes stretching before bed, and you do it. That's a win. Hey, you know what? In the morning, I'm gonna take 10, 15 minutes and I'm gonna read that book. That's winning. You know what? It's just my upper body that's messed up. I'm gonna start going on a 45-minute walk every day. And you start doing it. That is winning. You're on the right track. That's awesome. And this is what I really like to do. Keep a comeback, like a comeback journal, comeback kid, comeback story, right? Keep that comeback journal. Track your daily progress. And I want you to put, this is important. Track your daily progress. I want you to put what you're grateful for in there and the lessons you learned that day. Some days you're going to be able to go bam, 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 knock it out. Some days you're going to be like, real talk, okay? Everybody's like, you should be grateful. Listen, some days you're going to be sitting there and be like, I can't take the easy stuff that I'm grateful for. And you're grateful for it, but it's like, no, seriously. I am grateful that I got my ass out of bed today and actually stuck to my diet. and it sucked, but I'm grateful I did it because I feel better for doing it. And what were the lessons you learned? You know, it's crazy how life works, right? Here lately, the past couple of weeks, for some reason, I don't know if it's the politics here in the US or whatever it is, you know, everybody's so judgmental of everything. And, you know, we can learn something from everybody if we just shut up and listen sometimes, or shut up and watch, right? And look for the lessons each and every day. And even if you're listening to this and you're not injured, and I hope and pray that you are not injured, because that is not a place where we want to be. But even if you're doing pretty all right, but you're kind of feeling a little off, why don't we do a little gratitude journal in the morning? And before you go to bed, I kind of like to do a little brain dump. But why don't you do the lessons I learned today? It could be a lesson you learned today, or you'd be like, gosh, I learned a couple new things today. That's powerful. And you get in this routine, and it's going to start reframing things. Is it going to happen overnight? No, sorry. I'm not Ozempic on here, right? It's not going to happen overnight. But it'll happen over time, okay? You just got to get back in that routine, because routine is what drives us as an athlete. Because you wouldn't be competing in something if you didn't have a routine, okay? This is big. Avoid complaints. Champions, and you are a champion to overcome any of this, focus on what they can control, not what's unfair. Hear me. It's unfair that I'm hurt. It's unfair that this is messed up. It's unfair that I don't get to do this. It's just not right. It just doesn't feel good. Why did this happen to me? Well, you know what? I understand this happened to me, and it sucks. But what's really nice about this is if I'm really honest, I'm looking inside, I was a little tired. I can start resting up. This is that forced break for me. You know, I've kind of been pushing the envelope, getting a little bit of less sleep to get a little bit more activity in, you know, and getting a little bit more activity in and less sleep has made me a little bit more hungry. So I'm kind of binging on some days, or some days I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or sometimes I'm skipping meals or doing, and just, what can you control? Not why me, okay? Control what you can control and focus on that. Now, part 2, let's focus on how to minimize fitness loss without compromising your healing. How to minimize fitness loss without compromising your healing, because the number one thing we need to do is heal. And I've seen so many people rush the process. They get hit by a car, they hit the deck, meaning they crash their bike, or they have an accident while out running, or just, there's numerous things, or they pull a shoulder in the gym, or they rip a pec off underneath the bench press. There's so many different things that happen to people, but we're so A-type, and I don't care what level you are, who you are, whatever it is, we're so quick to get back into it. And believe me when I tell you, because I did rush my recovery in 2014, and I'm paying for it 11 years later. That's real talk, okay? I'm driving a car one-handed, right? And there's not a day goes by that doesn't feel like you took a knife and stabbed it directly into my shoulder. There's not a day that goes by, maybe every other day, when it gets cold, that it doesn't feel like I have shin splints all the time. And that is why, the reason why is because I rushed it, and I asked my doctor, I'm like, hey, aside from crashing again, could I do this race? And after him literally calling me an idiot, he said, as long as you don't hit the deck again or get hit by another car and you're stupid enough to do it, I can't see what it hurt. And yes, he didn't just come out and say that. I was pushing the envelope, pushing him. And I ultimately did it. And it was the most miserable, hardest, emotional event I have ever done. And looking back, I should have never, ever have rushed it. But what we're talking about, what I'm thankful for, is it taught me no matter what, I can push through things. It taught me no matter what negative things happen, that deep down inside I have a mindset to keep pushing forward. Now, growing 11 years later, it has taught me that just because I can doesn't mean I should. And we've talked about that on the pod before. And again, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And that was something that just because I could, I shouldn't have done. And I'm still paying for it. So friends, I'm asking you to not compromise your healing, because this is very important. So how do we minimize fitness and not compromise our healing? We can slow the fitness loss while keeping our body primed for a strong return. You just can't give up and stop. Numero uno, very important. It'll put you in dark places. Okay, if you literally just stop cold turkey, sit on the couch, binge watch Yellowstone, keeping up with the Kardashians, eating the Bugles. Bugles, where did that come from? They were pretty good with, like, what was it? Cream cheese? Oh, man, so good. Anyways, don't be doing that. But if you do stop, and it'll just put you in these dark places, right? Because it's that unfortunate thing where it's like, you can't be alone with your own thoughts, right? You don't want to be there, right? Because the voices aren't very nice majority of the time when you're going through something like that, right? So what do? We train what's available. If one body part, something is injured, then we can train the other stuff, right? If your upper body's injured, you can train lower body. There's machines in any gym that you can do. You can walk. You can, depending on the injuries with the upper body, you could lightly jog. Definitely work your legs, right? You go to the gym, they have all these seated bikes. If the upper body's all jacked up, you can sit on these seated bikes and you can still crank out power and you're not holding on to anything, right? If the lower body's injured, dude, upper body, good night. You can do so many different things, right? And again, it goes right back into the gym, but you're an athlete. You got to do what's needed to get done, right? Prioritize core and stability. Build strength where, honestly, endurance athletes really lack, because we talked about it last time, it's so crazy how many endurance athletes just stay away from working out. It blows my mind. But that's for another pod. So working our core, right? And there's so many different ways to do that too, right? Like if one arm's injured or something like that, you can grab a rope. You can be doing, some crunches and stuff in the gym with a rope or whatever. You can be doing, you can stand on a little like jelly looking ball in the gym and work on stability with the individual legs. I mean, there's so many different things you can do, but building the strength in the core where a lot of people lack, especially in endurance sports, again, that gives you a leg up, because normally you wouldn't even be focusing on it, right? Winning. Now, nutrition, we always talk about it, right? Optimize your nutrition. your protein, get collagen. Collagen is super, super important because what collagen is going to do is it's going to help with the elasticity of the body. It's going to help with your joints. It's going to help with your tendons, your ligaments, give you badass hair, right? All that good stuff. Help with skin repair. Super, super important. Omega-3s is really good for brain health, and hydration is super key for faster healing. And this is super important also is creatine. I know we don't want to have the water weight or any of that, but what's an interesting study, creatine is the most studied supplement in the market, and there is not one study ever published that lists anything negative come from it. Everything is positive. A 90-year-old grandmother should be taking creatine. It is that important, right? But here's the thing is, say you hit the deck and you hit your head, right? And you're concussed, maybe a little whiplash, but you're definitely a little concussed, right? You're a little angry and just like stuff's kind of jumbled around. Creatine has been shown to help you recover from the concussion. Now, I am anti-loading phase with creatine, but doubling it to 10 grams per day for a couple weeks is going to help with the cognitive repair and the cognitive function, because it is, helping hydrate, your body and hydrate your brain. And a 1% drop in hydration is going to affect your performance and your cognitive ability by 20%. So anything we can do to increase that and help repair that is super important. And here's a little pro tip. Adjust your calorie intake. Don't eat like you're burning 5, 6, 7,000 calories a day. But when you are injured, and if it is a significant injury where you had a lot of trauma to the body, your body is going to require more food than a normal, like, I stopped doing my sport. So if your body is actively repairing from a pretty intense trauma, you do need to make sure your body is getting enough good fruits and vegetables, good carbohydrate, protein. We talk about it all the time, right? 1 gram per pound of body weight, period, non-negotiable, needs to be there. Make sure you're getting that in, because your body needs to repair itself, and it's in hyper mode to recover itself. So it's going to be needing that. So if you are injured, don't cut back so drastically on everything that you're just like, oh, I'm not doing anything. It's like, no, you're still thinking, you're still trying to function. And more importantly, your freaking body's trying to heal. And that is important. So you got to feed that also, right? Now, let's talk about this one. The emotional side of recovery. How do you stay positive? That's a hard one, right? And it's one that I struggle with, right? Is you see all this stuff, and I love social media. I love all you guys, right? But it's hard, because when you start kind of doing a little brain dead scroll and you start seeing all this stuff, you start looking at things, you're like, oh, and you get in this mindset where you're like, kind of makes you feel like you're not there, or you don't have that, or you wish you could be there or do this, but right now you just can't. So how do you stay positive? Injuries bring frustration, doubt, and even that identity crisis we talked about earlier. And I think, and I really feel, staying engaged and strong through that process is super, super important. You see, you need to adopt like a long-term perspective. Injuries feel massive in the moment. They just feel huge, right? Like I remember, go ahead. I cannot wait to see the comments on this one. But I remember one time I was sitting there and I was coming out of the bathroom and I hit my toe and I broke my little toe. And holy crap, that hurt. Holy smokes. But I could not get my foot in a cycling shoe. My little toe, I'm still able to walk around, work, eat, go through life. Everything is good, but holy crap, if I told you I did not focus on me not being able to put on a cycling shoe and go ride comfortably 20 hours a day, I'd be lying to you. I mean, it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. And of course, there's like 3 days before an event. I'm like, son of a, and it's just, you're just like, holy crap, right? That injury felt so massive and so significant right then and there that it was just like, oh man. But over time, it was just like, okay, yeah, it's sore. I'm getting through it. But it was just, I let the weight of that just kind of like put me in a negative mindset, right? And injuries, even though they're big now, in a few months, few years, or whatever it is just a very small chapter, and it could be a beautiful chapter, right? Very, very beautiful chapter. But it was just a small blip in things, right? That was it. You know, this is kind of like a hack, and I hate that word hack. I got to come up with a different word because everybody has a hack for everything in life right now. Jesus. But stay in the community. Okay, this is super important. I know this is developing that mental strength, right? Stay in the community. You got injured and you wanted to go do an event. Go to the event anyways. Go see your friends. Go be a part of it. Hell, go work an aid station. Go cheer on other people. And one thing that has helped me get through a lot of things is, even though I'm Mr. Poopy Pants going into an event like, man, I just wanted to go do this, you know, and I can't believe it. When I start cheering for other people and I just see, you know, them just have a smile, and it's just like, dude, I can't tell you if I even think about what's wrong with me, like what my injury is, because it brings me so much joy to see them doing what they're doing. It is so incredible watching people push themselves and being on the other side of the fence, watching these guys do what you were ultimately planning to do is incredible, and honestly just flat out inspiring. And it definitely puts you in a different mindset of just like, wow, I am so thankful that I'm even get to be here cheering these people on, right? Because I'm not talking worst case scenario. It's like, because the old me would have just been like, screw this, I'm not gonna do this, you know, but you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go to the event anyways. I'm gonna cheer on my buddies that are doing it. I want to go there and I want to give back to the community. That's incredible. Attend the races. So if you're on a team, support the team. You just have to stay involved. Then turn your recovery into a challenge. Gamify your rehab, right? Make progress measurable. You know, as you go through things, you know, make each day, it's like, oh, I did this today, right? And tomorrow when you wake up, oh, I can't wait to go do this again. Just keep that game. Same as you're playing a PlayStation or an Xbox or whatever game it is you'll play, right? Just, you got to gamify it, you know? And I do the same thing when I'm racing, you know? And we can talk about that later, but this is gamify your rehab and make the progress measurable. It's just like, holy crap, can you believe last week I was only able to lift my arm like this? Now I'm able to get all the way up like this. I'm almost, you know, I'm practically there. It puts you in that right mindset. And the biggest mistake I see people making is disconnecting from your sport completely. Friends, you've got to stay engaged. You've got to stick with it. You've got to be in the community. If you're a cyclist, go to the days that you're feeling just like kind of down in the poopers, go to your bike shop. Go on the weekends, go see the local, it's like, I'm going to go out, you know what? Normally I'll be going with the group this morning. It's just so stupid or whatever. Go meet the group, send them off, and go have a cup of coffee. You have to stay in the community because the community will support you and the community will lift you back up. And that is super, super important. Now, the comeback plan. Returning stronger than ever. That's what we all want, right? That's what we all want to achieve. And the biggest mistake I see people making in this particular one is rushing back too soon and re-injuring themselves. It might feel okay now, but later on down the road, you're just like, something's a little off here, right? I like to break it down into phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, right? So phase 1 is a controlled movement. Focus on mobility and pain-free exercises. That's if one part's injured, work the other one, right? The phase 2 is strength and stability. Reintroduce resistance training slowly, okay? And hopefully you were in the gym before this, but you have to reintroduce it slowly. You can't just go in there and throw around the same weight. Go in there and be like, and again, gamify it, right? Is, you know what? I'm gonna, this time, I'm not starting over. I'm coming back better because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus on mastering the movement and the exercise. So in the mindset, I'm gonna be, okay, I'm gonna go in way less weight and I want to get a mind muscle connection, right? I want to get to where I feel the muscle, where I feel everything working instead of just kind of going through the movements and just like rushing through. Is like, no, I want to go in, I want to feel every movement, I want to make sure I'm doing it right and start the process slowly. Then phase 3 is returning to your sport. Start at 60% of your usual intensity, then progress up smartly. As you're, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better, I'm gonna just a little bit more, right? Just slowly. And track your recovery responses to make adjustments as needed. If you're like, I felt really good this week, but dude, I felt really good doing my exercises this week, but I felt absolutely destroyed after them. You know what? I'm gonna, instead of ramping it up, I'm gonna dial it back maybe about 5%. And instead of doing 8 hours, I'm gonna do 7.5. And I'm gonna do a little bit more recovery. So dialing back a little bit more, right? So this is how I would structure and kind of begin that road to recovery after injury, right? So kind of to close it out, right? Choose your comeback story, right? Like everybody's writing a book, but hear me, everybody's writing your own book. You don't have to write the book that everybody else is telling you that you need to write. You can write the book that you want to write, because I guarantee it, what you're doing right now in sport, somebody somewhere told you that you couldn't. And you wrote that book saying, but I can. You have the opportunity to write your own story. This injury does not define you. Your response to this injury does. Complain, lose distraction. I mean, lose dedication, right? Lose discipline. It's gonna set you back and it's gonna break you. You got to stay locked in, build discipline, and use time to become mentally and physically stronger. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of your greatest comeback ever. Now go put in the work, friends. Like, follow, share with somebody that you think will find value in this. If you're listening on YouTube, smash that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. It's how we grow. Remember, friends, rising tides raises all ships. Lift up those around you. Bring positivity to every situation. And above all, don't judge those you don't truly know. Everyone's fighting a battle. We'll talk to you next time.